Hello everybody, it's Keith from Calves for the Calves, and got our little dairy calves here again, and they're all resting up. Even though it's about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, they'll be just about running around soon because they always have playtime in the late afternoons. The purpose of this video is just to explain just quickly our the medical situations of myself that's led us into this position where we're having a lot of physical troubles to be able to continue looking after dairy calves, because in this business we look after the dairy farmers' bull calves, and well, not the dairy farmers' bull calves, but the dairy farmers' heifer calves, and we buy the bull calves. And we in recent time, or in the last couple of years, we've had to downsize business to a degree, but we just can't give up on these little calves. Now, what's happened is that I'll go back many years ago. I had a knee reconstruction and I had the beginnings of osteoarthritis, and that was when I was a lot younger than I am now. I'm 48 now, and but as the years sort of progressed and doing this sort of work, which this entails, you know, a lot of lifting of calves as well as the grain buckets and the work in general, it's just the way it is, where I'm now diagnosed with severe osteoarthritis in both elbows and both knees, and that's where I've got a little selfie stick because my right arm doesn't straighten anymore, and I can't really hold it out there very much, so I had to get myself a selfie stick to be able to hold the phone in a position where I'm able to talk to it. And then, so yeah, both arms not very good, and both knees. The orthopedic surgeons are like, "Oh, what have you done to yourself?" Because like, They talk about elbows, they're not loaded joints, and so people shouldn't really have issues with both of them. But yeah, through different hard career choices, I've kind of made a mess of them. Yeah, they're a bit worn out and don't really work very good anymore. And it's been 2.5 years ago I had a now I can't use the technical terms, but around L4, L5 of my spine, where the sciatic nerve goes through, which is the main nerve down to both right and left leg, but mine was on the right leg, it got pinched because I had a disc that did its thing. I don't know, they have their spondylosis or some word they use. I'm not a medical professional, don't count me on that one. But anyway, that was just because I'm on the public healthcare system. Yeah, I'm not ragging on the system, it's just the way it goes. Obviously, you know, I just can't afford private health insurance. It took forever to see a neurosurgeon about it, but there's a few consequences that led me to a position to be able to get that treated a little bit earlier, but I'll go into that now. That rainwater tank over there, you see it between the two sheds, and that one right there, when that got delivered, this is like 2.5 years ago, not long after I had the back issue, and I was limping around because the sciatic nerve was just absolutely going off its head, and I was on a lot of opiates for pain management, and I was just totally way too drugged, and it was just absolutely horrible. Drugs and me don't really go together. We're not really friends at all, and it just mentally just makes things very, very difficult for me to be on high doses of opioids. And anyway, I was on a lot of Oxycontin and oxycodone, and of course nerve blockers, etc., trying to combat the nerve pain and anti-inflammatories and that. And anyway, we had this tank here delivered by the truck, and seriously, if you've ever had on high doses of opiates, it just puts you in, well, put me in this different world of, I felt like I was in the twilight zone. And for some reason, when it got delivered, I just put myself in a stupid position underneath that tank, and I literally ended up underneath that tank. When he rolled it off the side of the truck, because it got this special hinge thing, I ended up getting stuck underneath of it, and it belted me in the right leg, which happened to be the leg with the sciatic nerve, and in the side of the knee, and it got a massive hematoma, or big bruise, and I use fancy words. Anyway, I'd seen, during all of that time, while it was developing, I was seeing orthopaedic surgeons about my osteoarthritis in my knees and elbows, and I would see the doctors about this hematoma, and because it was massive at the time, and you know, I just kept on getting shrugged off, and no doctor really could see an issue, and so I was like, yeah, all right, I'll continue on doing what I'm doing. And of course, feeding these guys just never stops, and you know, you got to keep going to the dairy every day, and you know, it's 7 days a week, it never stops. We never get holidays. I don't even know what holiday is. We never get it. But anyway, I'm not here to cry about that, because obviously we love doing what we do. But I then went into like a toxic shock, and it made me extremely sick, because it was actually, the hematoma got infected. Even though it never ruptured the skin, the hematoma got infected. And this bit sounds bad, but they put me in the emergency department in Bunbury, which happens to be like 170 kilometres from where we are, which is about 110 miles, something like that. And I decided to go cold turkey off the opioids, and I tell you, that was just, that's the story for another day. That is just horrendous. Like, you definitely don't want to do that. That is just, whew, that's painful, that is. But anyway, I ended up with surgery on that right knee to open up the hematoma and clean it out and to get rid of the infection. And so I've got this massive scar on my leg. But when I was recovering from the opioids in hospital and that, I ended up, I should really say this, I forget about this one point, and I smile about it, but you'll sort of get it, I'm sure. I was sitting in my hospital bed, and the doctor comes walking in and says, "You're dying." Just like that. And go, yeah, okay. Because it kind of shocked me, like, yeah, I know we're all dying, but, you know, like, I would hope that it would be a fair while away than now. And he says, "No, seriously, mate, like, we got to get you to ICU now because you're dying." And I was like, yeah, well, okay, what's going on? And he said, "Well, I'm in kidney failure." And okay, well, I didn't know that. Of course, like, I'm not kidneys just fail for whatever reason, and you don't know it, and people die from that sort of stuff. And so anyway, I went in, they took me down to ICU, and I spent a couple of weeks there, and I also had to go into surgery to get that hematoma done. And apparently I went into acute tubular necrosis. There's a terminology for you. That was caused by the anti-inflammatory medication, put me in acute tubular necrosis of the kidneys, and fortunately it was caught at a time where the kidneys have actually gone into renal failure, but the kidneys have a miraculous ability about healing themselves. They, as long as they haven't been in tubular necrosis for too long, then the kidneys can actually clean themselves and be able to start functioning again. And that, fortunately, I've got kidneys that now function to a level which is okay. It's obviously done some permanent damage, but I have two kidneys that both of them do work. So I dodged a bullet on that one. And then when I was sort of getting over the opioids, after a good couple of weeks, you know, when your head starts to clear up, for some reason, this side of the head, the tinnitus was just really, and I just didn't feel very right at all. And so it was like, I know this sounds really blasé, but seriously, as a farmer, you sort of, you learn to just roll with the knocks, you know, like you don't really let it get to you. I said to me doctor that, hey, doc, I've got a brain tumour, I need to get a CT scan. And he's like, yeah, right, eh? I have a good relationship with my doctor. Obviously, I'm talking to him a lot, dealing through all these sciatic nerve issues, because that was still going on. And because this was about July, and I think the back injury happened around February, and this surgery was in July or something. And I said to him, you know, I just need to have a CT scan. Unfortunately, he actually said, yeah, no worries. And he asked me for my symptoms, which I told him, like vertigo and hearing loss and all this sort of stuff. And even without sending me to hearing clinics, he decided just to be okay, no worries, I'll send you off for a CT scan with contrast. And so he did that. And I went for a CT scan, and they found a brain tumour. And it was about a 30mm brain tumour. It's called an acoustic neuroma. So it's on the vestibular nerve of the right-hand side of my head, and it needed surgery. Yay, back to that again. And because that one is more urgent, because it's well advanced acoustic neuroma, it was considered to be life-threatening, so it meant that I could see neurosurgeons quicker. And I was still on a waiting list to see a neurosurgeon about the back injury, and the sciatic nerve pain was just shit. If you've ever had sciatic nerve, you know what I'm talking about. It bloody hurts like hell, and it just wouldn't stop, day, night. Oh shit, it's just horrible. Sorry for the language, but it seriously is just stuff that you don't want people to go through. It's just horrible. But it meant that I could see the neurosurgeons, you know, like pretty much straight away. So it was about a week later. We had to go for a drive to Perth, which is about 450 kilometres from where we live, or about 380 miles or something, I'm guessing. And see the neurosurgeon. Now, I took my back x-ray or back CT scans, MRI scans with me, that my orthopaedics had organised, and because I needed to see the neurosurgery for the back, because nerve, neuros, whatever, that's what they deal with. And I was still on the wait list to see them about the back injury, but I sort of had a foot in the door with a brain tumour that meant I was seeing the neurosurgery. And so I took my scans with me, and while they were waiting for the brain tumour scans to download on the computer, I said to the neurosurgeon, you know, like, I know this is completely out of left field, but could you please have a look at me scans from me back and tell me what you think? And lo and behold, he said, yeah, no worries, mate. Just like that. And I was like, okay, cool, no worries. So he had a look at it, and he was like, oh shit, well, you need surgery on your back, you need a laminectomy. And I was like, okay, what does that involve? And he was telling me the procedure for relieving the sciatic nerve pain with a laminectomy. And then they got the download of me brain tumour. It was like, oh shit, mate, you need to have surgery on your head. And I was like, okay, great, awesome, okay, no worries. So what do you reckon the deal is? And so he said, well, which one do you want done first? And I said, well, I really want to try and get the leg done first, because the brain tumours, if you Google acoustic neuroma, you'll know they take many, many years to grow. And yet the nerve, I've got very limited time to try and salvage the nerve. I don't want any permanent nerve damage. And I've already been, this is back in October now, I'm talking. So I know July to October doesn't add up, but maybe my July is wrong, but I know that it was in October. These little pointers with neurosurgery sort of trigger a more precise timeline than what it is with orthopedics and stuff like that. There's certain things in your life which sort of get more ingrained into your scon than others. And so I said to him, I really want to get the back surgery done first, and hopefully that still means that, you know, like very soon after, then I can get brain surgery done. And so he booked me in the beginning of November to get the back surgery done at the first opportunity that they had. And so they did a laminectomy, but by the time they got to it, the nerve was already damaged. So I've got permanent nerve damage down my right leg, so I've got constant drop foot. And when you see go through the OT, or that's the occupational therapy for physiotherapy, they assess all the muscles and stuff in your leg. There's a lot of muscles there that don't work anymore, and so I sort of walk around with a limp now because I've got to get my foot a little bit higher off the ground. I've try things like dictus braces and that to try and help hold the foot up. You know, things to try and make mobility a little bit better. But it is what it is, you know, like that's life. But that you can sort of, it's not the worst of conditions to deal with, but, you know, obviously you just would like to have all your muscles working, of course. But then in the beginning of December, I had, and it just so happens that, that was on about the 9th of November in 2020. And I think it was about the 25th of October 2020 that I lost my dad. He passed away with Lewy body Alzheimer's. And so I had a really great 2020. And so in between surgeries, we had the funeral, which happened to be at the other end of the state, where we had to go down to Albany. And so we'll do, yeah, hospitals, travel, you name it. It was just, and meanwhile, still feeding calves every day. Like, you just got to schedule stuff in. And obviously, while I was in hospital, me kids and me partner would be feeding, doing, you know, like, seriously, the support in the family, in our family here, is just amazing. Like, you couldn't ask or wish for it to be any better. Like, it's just, obviously, everyone pulls together and does their thing. That's what family's all about. But I had this video is getting pretty long now, but the medical stuff is quite in depth. But I had the brain surgery done, and I'm permanently on getting MRI checks every year and have appointments with the ear, nose, throat doctors as well as the neurosurgery. And so I can follow up treatments and whatever it is that I need with physiotherapies and whatever else. But because my tumour was quite well advanced, as they say, it was bloody big, apparently a 30mm acoustic neuroma is on the big end of the scale. But it also depends on exactly where it grows on the vestibular nerve, and so some of them are maybe not so bad than others, and so it varies in the post-treatment success of the patient on exactly how the acoustic neuroma grew and whereabouts on the vestibular nerve. But I just seem to, if I was playing poker, I'd be bloody losing all the time, because I always seem to just draw the wrong end of the deal, you know, and just seem to have really shitty cards all the time. But anyway, you just got to smile and move on. I know it's life. We all have our struggles, our issues, but all this is to do is to explain the reason where we're a bit stuck. But the post-surgery issues I have is I've got really extremely loud tinnitus in this, even though this is completely deaf now. I'm deaf in the right ear, even though it looks like I'm holding my left, but this is my right ear. I'm completely deaf in the right ear. It's got extremely loud tinnitus. I got various degrees of constant vertigo, like when you do something which puts strain on your body, like even lifting that little tub, it gives me really intensive vertigo feelings of the world spinning, and chronic fatigue, and so it really bogs you down. I'm fortunately doing really well at the moment because I've just had a afternoon sleep. So I've got to do my videos, I've got to pick the right time after I've had the rest so I can talk clearly and properly, and because otherwise I'm just like someone who's drunk on the camera. It's bloody hard. But that's the issues with the brain surgery. The osteoarthritis means I can't really hold the phone very good, so I just bought a selfie stick so I can, because I can't straighten my right arm, and so it allows me to keep it bent and be able to hold the phone a little bit better, so then I can hopefully share these guys with all of you guys. But obviously with all the medical things that we've had go wrong, we've had to cut back on the amount of calves we're doing. We're only doing about, well, it's just one dairy full of calves, so it's about 400 calves a year, which sounds like a lot, but we are only keeping them here for anywhere from sort of 4 to 5 months, something like that. So the land use is not that big, but we don't have much land, so that's just, it works in well. But fortunately I've got a 22-year-old son, or we have a 22-year-old son here. Actually I think I'm going to get shot for that. He's probably 21. That's Dad for you. Sorry about that. I have 4 kids altogether. I have a 25-year-old or 26-year-old that lives away from me, or from us. We have our 21-year-old, we have a 18-year-old daughter who lives in Perth, and we have a 15-year-old son who lives here as well. So we have 2 kids here, and they both help us with our farm. Obviously you've got to do what you got to do to keep the roof above your head. But as you could imagine, the circumstances that we face ourselves in, particularly with the medical things, we can't just keep doing things that keep costing us money. And that's where I've gone into a video to explain the monetary side and the reason why we do it for the bull calves. But that's where we end up in this position where we need some assistance from people to be able to get through all this stuff. And I'm not going to tug at people's heartstrings by using these emotional activist type lines about the dairy industry, because it's where we live, that's not true. But having said that, with doing what we do, make sure that the calves are all well looked after. Like, it's just the way it is. So yeah, anyway, that's pretty much it on the medical side of things. We're still battling on. All right, we're not going to give up, but I'm really hoping I can get some help and take people on the journey to experience what we're doing and the reason for it, and be able to see these guys here grow and develop, even though they are quite sleepy still at the moment. But that's the whole idea about trying to do what we do, because we honestly need help. Like, that's the position that we're in. We're begging for help, essentially. I know that word is wrong. I shouldn't have used that. We're pleading for help. You know, seriously, we're in a position where we're really struggling, and if you guys can muster the ability to see the truth behind the dairy industry, which is what I'm showing, well, at least the truth here, and see that even though it mightn't be so bad in the animal welfare side of stuff, but you understand that we still are faced with challenges for the economics of doing what we do, and of course faced with the medical conditions that we have. You understand that, you know, we seriously need help. But thank you very much, and love yous all. Take it easy. I'll see you later. Bye.